Hello and welcome back, it's Shrike here with another D&D video, and today we're going to be talking about how to manage splitting the party. If you've been a Dungeon Master for some time now, or you're new to it, you might have experienced the moment when the party splits into different groups, or maybe even individuals, and it's quite stressful to keep on top of it and to keep everyone interested. You've probably seen that people start to look at their phones, or start to draw things and not really pay attention to what's actually going on in the game. So I thought I'd put this video together with some tips of how to make sure that doesn't happen. But before we get onto that, I just want to let you know that I upload D&D content here on YouTube twice a week. So make sure to subscribe if you want to improve your D&D game, take part in D&D discussions, or keep up with D&D news. I also stream here on YouTube every Wednesday so people can come and chat with me and ask me any questions they might have to try and improve their games, so make sure to subscribe so you see when I go live. If you've seen other D&D advice videos, you've probably heard the term sharing the spotlight, and that is very relevant when it comes to splitting the party. The term sharing the spotlight means that you as the DM make sure that every player has enough focus on them and their character. You don't really want it where one player or one character is having a lot more focus on them and their character progression and their story, while someone else isn't having any at all, because they're just going to get disinterested and feel it's a bit unfair that this other player is getting a lot more than they are. So that's how that term is usually used, but it also makes sense for when the party is split to make sure that you're going between the two groups or three groups or however many groups that they've split into. And this is one of the key things you can do to try to keep the game interesting and make sure people don't lose interest when the party is split. And that's just going between the groups as often as you can. I have spoken with DMs where they will literally put a 3-minute timer on their phone, and then when that goes off, they know that they have to try to wrap up the scene that they're doing at the moment so they can move to the next group so they can also get involved. You don't really want a situation where you're focusing on one group for half an hour, let's say, because the other group just aren't going to be interested. They're going to start looking at their phone and not really thinking about Dungeons and Dragons, and then maybe if you spend too long at the end of the game, they'll question why they even came along because they barely got to play. So this first tip is just to go between the different groups as often as you can, but as a new DM, it's quite hard to keep that in the back of your mind while you're trying to organise and keep on top of everything else that's going on. So feel free to explain the situation to the players and say, okay, you're about to split the party, so help me with sharing the spotlight. And if you think the spotlight's been on you for too long, say something and we can move it to someone else. I did this in my early days of DMing and it really works. People understood when the spotlight was on them for too long and they'll say, oh, Jerry hasn't really had much spotlight on him yet, let's go and see what he's up to. And me as DM go, oh yeah, that makes sense, let's move across. A Dungeon Master has a hell of a lot of stuff to try to keep in the back of their mind while they're playing the game, so trying to offload some of that onto your players is always a good idea. The other big thing you can do as a Dungeon Master when the party is split to keep everyone engaged in what's going on is just make sure that the scene or the situation that you are explaining and going through with one of the groups is interesting and then the other groups would like to watch. If you think about it, a lot of D&D players and Dungeon Masters watch Dungeons and Dragons streams now. That's because it's entertaining and it's interesting, so if you make sure that your scene and the scenario that you're going through with one of the groups is also entertaining and interesting, then the other players that aren't actually in that scene are going to be really interested to watch what's going to happen. And there's two areas I want to get into in regards to that. And the first is going to be how to make a scene more interesting, what you can include. And the second is making sure that you cut out or reduce the uninteresting part of the game. So if you think about a scenario where the party is split and some are going to the blacksmiths to get some more equipment or whatever they need from the blacksmith. If you put a scene together where it's generic dwarf number 4 who is serving them and is just asking them basic questions, that's not going to be interesting for the people that aren't actually in that scene. So the two ways I would suggest going about that is either make something interesting happen in that scene or cut it out or reduce it quite a lot. So to make it more interesting, you can make sure to give the dwarf a bit of personality and maybe a little quirk to their personality. Or while the players are there, you could get some gang members to come in and bully him a bit, or maybe even try to steal from him. So then it's an exciting scene that they're now involved with, and they'll feel like if they didn't end up going there, they would have completely missed that bit of content. So that's how you can make the scene a bit more interesting, but you could also just completely reduce or remove the scene completely and just ask them why they want to go to the blacksmith, what they want to buy, tell them how much that is, and then get on with the game. I would say if they're in a village or a place like that, then make sure to do the first scenario that I gave you. It gives a bit more depth to the place that they are and adds some extra side stories that they could get interested in. But if they're in a massive city and there's 50 blacksmiths, then feel free to just bypass that and just say they go to a blacksmith and they get what they want. The next thing I want to talk about is a split party while you're in initiative, while you're in combat. So there's a few scenarios I want to talk about here. The first of which is that the group has split, but both of the groups are both in combat, just in different places or maybe with different people. What I do in that scenario is make sure that all of the characters are on one initiative. And this goes back to the spotlight. If you go through all of the initiative of one group, then the other group are going to be bored and not interested. But if you put them all on the same initiative, you're going back and forth between the two scenes, so everyone is always on alert and listening into what is happening. I found this works for me to keep everyone interested, but it is a little bit of a mental challenge to keep on top of what's happening in both of the scenes. And in the second scenario is that the party is split and one group has got into combat and the other one hasn't. And this one, you're going to have to sort of work out on your own if it makes sense to put the other group in initiative or not. And if you're not putting them in initiative individually, what I do is I put them as a group in the initiative tracker, let's say at 10 or 20. And then when you get round to that point in your initiative, you go over to that group and you give them a couple of minutes to go through what they're doing over there. I find this is a good way to continue to share the spotlight between the two groups, and then there might be a situation where they do go into initiative and you can just then roll their initiative and add it into the initiative that you're running with the other group. I feel like I said the word initiative a lot there, so if you got a bit confused, let me know down in the comments and I'll try to explain it better. The final thing I want to say about splitting the party is that it's definitely worth talking to the players to see if they have a problem with tuning out when the other group is doing something. I have actually had a few players that enjoy leaving the room and going elsewhere when the party is split and their character isn't in the situation. So when the party is split and they're not actually in the situation that we're going through, they leave the room and they might go through Facebook or do whatever they want, and they actually prefer doing that. So if you came to this video because you thought you had a problem when the party was splitting, it might be worth just talking to your players and see if they think it's a problem, because they might be absolutely fine with zoning out and doing their own thing while the other side of the party are doing whatever they're doing, and then they come back into it when their character's back in the scene. And if all the players feel the same, it might be worth just picking one side of the group, going through their full scenario, even if it takes half an hour, and just telling the other group that it's going to take a while, so go and do your own thing, and I'll call you back in when you're ready. I feel like this is a bit of advice that comes up in a lot of my advice giving videos. Just talk to the players about problems that you might have, because they might even not think they're problems, or they might be able to come up with their own solutions to help you. There you have it. I hope this video has helped. If it has, please do give it a like. It helps me to grow this channel. And subscribe if you want to continue to improve your game, keep up to date with D&D news, and take part in D&D discussions. I upload videos regularly and I stream regularly here on YouTube, so there's a lot you get out of subscribing, so go ahead and do it. But until next time, happy gaming.